Welcome to Cleveland Connections. I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll, and we are here on the campus of Cleveland Community College with Becky Donaldson. Becky serves as the ACE coordinator here at the college, and that helps hundreds of students every year find success academically in different classes that they're taking. So, Becky, tell us a little bit more about the students that we serve here through ACE.
Okay. Well, I think what a lot of people imagine sometimes when you hear the word tutoring, because ACE, it stands for Academic Center for Excellence, and sometimes people think, oh, tutoring, that's remedial. This is for students who are behind where they want to be. And although that does happen from time to time, for example, when I took a math class, I was in there working with fellow tutors, getting caught up. But we see an awful lot of students who want to get from a C to a B or a B to an A. And I think the most common thing that we deal with is students who come into college, whether it's right out of high school or very, very often returning students who've been out of the classroom for many, many years and are kind of retraining. They come in nervous and they think, I don't know if I have what it takes to do this. And the major thing that ACE does is help students adapt. Because what students don't realize is you're not missing anything. You are simply in a new environment.
Right.
And it takes a little while to figure out what this new environment requires of you. So ACE is doing things like working through specific math problems with students or working on writing projects. But we're doing a lot of stuff like, how do you even study? How do you manage your time? What does it mean to be a college student when you're also a working single parent? This is a lot to balance. And so I like to tell students, what we can do for you is save you an awful lot of time, which you need because you have very little, and help you adapt to this new environment, which will take a little time. But if you try these strategies, you're going to figure out what works for you.
Absolutely. And I think too, you're right when to think about technology and some of the changes that have happened, especially I would say in my generation, from the time we were in high school till now, you can feel like I'm never going to figure this out. And so I know that ACE has been really effective, especially with my students, and helping them get to that point where they're successful and they're able to access that piece of their learning maybe that they had put on hold for such a long time.
Yeah.
What are you seeing happening now with, you mentioned that remedial idea that maybe there was this sense that this isn't for the people who are already understanding and I'm behind the times, or maybe that just that label that sometimes is on people who are going to use a tutoring center.
Yep.
How are we moving past that and helping students see the value to them without worrying about what the label itself means, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. We often talk about stigma with that. I think one of the big points I try to encourage students with is keep in mind, and maybe they don't know yet when they're here, but there are other academic environments that they haven't yet been exposed to, like graduate school. Guess what there is at graduate school? Tutoring centers. Guess what there is at medical school? Tutoring centers. Learning centers, they're often called. This is something that is part of academic life, is figuring out how can I do it most effectively the first time, rather than, making mistakes along the way. That's exactly how we learn, but that can really raise stress for students. And making mistakes with a partner who's kind of guiding you through, okay, we made a mistake, but how can we learn from that and come up with a new strategy for next time? We really see it reduce student stress, which again, most of our students are not just full-time college students and that's all they're doing.
Yeah.
They're doing a whole lot of other stuff too.
Right.
And so the stress reduction is a huge, huge thing. But another environment people, I think, should be aware of is we have a huge academic support apparatus that is growing for things like nursing school. We have a new standalone nursing school. We've had the practical nursing program for many years. This is not remediation. This is just hard.
It is.
It's just hard.
It is hard.
It's so much information, and
passing is an 80.
That's
and
right.
So you're not looking at, I just got to squeak by with a 60 and I'm going to be okay, or a 70.
That's exactly right.
You have to get an 80
That's
on these
exactly
tests. Right. And so, yeah, it's stressful.
Uh-huh.
And
Very
terrifying.
stressful. Yeah. And P.S. When you graduate this program, you got to pass this huge state board. You're not even done when you graduate.
Bless.
So there's a whole, that's a whole recipe for stress. But what ACE tutors are doing with those students, most of the ACE tutors are one of two things. They're either, really, most of them are current students who are working in the program with their peers, or they're maybe 1 or 2 semesters ahead. And so what they're doing is saying, we've got all this information we've got to tackle. What learners have to do is figure out what works for their brains. So, for example, one of the nursing tutors that's working with us right now that's in the program was working with a student for a whole semester, and that student really knew the information in these study sessions, and then you sit down for that test, and the panic hits, and the test grades were not reflecting that student's understanding, which I know faculty see all the time. And what they discovered after trial and error is, if in study time, every concept is associated with a picture, she's got it down, no problem. So that's what ACE is doing, is figuring out, okay, your brain is in this environment that it finds itself in. What's going to work for your brain that's going to give it all the chances in the world to access all this information you've worked so hard to learn and study ahead of these tests.
Right.
And it's having a person to do that with, instead of what I call the tunnel of chaos that students get in their own head, which is a hard thing to overcome. Knowing, hey, there's somewhere I can go to say, here's what I'm experiencing, what should I try next? Did it work? Great, let's keep doing that. Did it not work? What's the next thing to try? Let's keep it rolling.
Keep going, and
Yep.
don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. I know with the nursing piece, I have that personal experience because my daughter came through the practical nursing program and is working as a nurse now, but she did have those moments before she got connected to the ACE lab where it was like all of the material was there to study, but are you studying effectively? And that was where the tutors were really able to help guide and just provide some of that feedback of, here's where the majority of these questions are probably going to come from, because this is what, the majority of the focus is going to be on.
Yeah.
And so some of that you couldn't possibly know just as a student. It does take that just experience. But I feel like there are those helps there with ACE that students maybe don't realize are there just to take advantage of.
Yeah.
As an English teacher, I see a huge difference in the students that are willing to take the time and meet up with the people that you have working in the Writing Center. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, but there are former students helping with that. There are some faculty members or staff members here on campus that help with that. What does that look like from the student side? Like, how do they get connected? And then what does that next step look like for them to get connected to have a tutor session or a study session set up?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. There's actually a million different ways, which is great, but also can make it confusing. So there's a couple options. First, I would definitely direct students to our website. So if you go to clevelandcc.edu/ACE, all this information is going to be there. You can see who the tutors are, what their backgrounds are, who you might wind up meeting with. And the other thing that's really great is when students log into what we call their apps panel, where they go to Blackboard and they get all their classes, you have an actual app called ACE. So if you click on ACE, you're going to see, you can schedule yourself an appointment, you can cancel appointments, you can reschedule appointments, you can email us, we have a text number. We have tried to, over the past several years, just remove all the obstacles for students to access the service. And a great new development is that we have a welcome desk assistant. So we have a cheerful, helpful person who is going to answer those text messages and those emails and say, hey, let's see if we can get it figured out. If you don't see a time that works for you, we're going to ask all of our tutors that work in that class, hey, would this time work? Would that time work? A great thing for students to be aware of is that we can meet face-to-face on campus, but we also can meet online via Microsoft Teams, which everyone has access to. That's super helpful. And another note is when it's, say, 3 a.m. on Sunday, and you have statistics homework that's due, and you are stuck. That stuck feeling can be so difficult to overcome. And so I really try to make sure students know you're still not stuck at that point. We have the college contracts with a service called tutor.com that's available when ACE is not. So if students log into their Blackboard courses and click on Get Tutoring, they're going to see ACE as an option, which is always your number one choice because you're working with our tutors who've worked with these faculty in these classes, have likely taken these classes. But tutor.com is fantastic to get you unstuck when you're stuck on that problem. So it's available there too.
And even I think they can help with some like proofreading if you're getting ready to
Oh,
submit
yeah.
something and it's late, or you work. I know we have students with
Yep.
unconventional work hours that
100%.
I literally just met with on the phone a guy who is a helicopter pilot in the Outer Banks, and he's in one of my English classes. So we have all kinds of, you're familiar with the EMT life, and it is a 12-hour, 24-hour, it just depends on what the shift is. And our students are doing this. They're doing full-time classes, plus they're continuing on with their professional work. So we want to, I love that you're providing the service in a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different capacities for them to connect. Where do you see this program continuing to develop? I know we've come a long way from where we were even just a few years ago when your position was a part-time position. Now you're here all the time. Bless your heart. Walk us through what that transition has looked like and the support and the results for the students.
There's been some really exciting things going on. It's interesting. Cleveland Community College as a whole has been growing and growing and growing when that's not necessarily true for every other community college in the system. So that's something. But when we look at what those percentages of growth are and we look at what ACE's percentages of growth are, we're even outpacing the enrollment growth, which is incredibly encouraging. To me, that says students are coming, they're finding it useful, they're telling other students. And a huge part of that, too, is faculty buy-in. I think my communication with faculty has greatly increased since coming on full-time. When there's issues, faculty reach out to me. We talk about it. We work together. We're all on the same team, which is the student success team. That's a huge change I've seen, and I think that's part of why our numbers keep increasing, which is so, so encouraging. And some things we want to see improvement in the future is helping students get started on the right foot, because so often we will see students when they're starting to feel a little panicky. And I think, oh, you don't have to be that stressed.
Yeah.
Come in at the beginning, come in at the beginning. Come before you start writing the rough draft of the paper. Make sure that you understand exactly what your instructor's looking for. You know as well as I do, planning a paper out is going to save you so much time on the back end. And often students really do understand the prompt, but being able to talk it out with another person just really, I think the number one thing is it brings that stress level down.
Right.
And stressed students have a difficult time learning. We all do.
Right.
And if that stress is lower, kind of a joke inside ACE is, we feel kind of sad about those students we see once and then they never come back again. But then I also think, the reason they never came back again is because they felt so much more relaxed when they left. And we do get this feedback that they were like, just knowing it's there, I'm good in the future. Yep, I know it's there, so I'll come back if I need to, but I'm feeling more comfortable to kind of keep at it.
Right, and not give up. And at that first, I guess, I don't want to call it friction, but it is that you do feel that frustration, and then that frustration feeds into this idea of I'm in over my head and I can't do this. And so that I can do hard things. I love that they're, kind of supporting students along this. Yes, it's not necessarily easy, because if it was, everybody would do it.
That's right.
But we're here to help you make sure that you can be successful. One of the things that I know you and I have discussed is this idea of what college writing should sound like. And I know that you had some great advice for some essay writers and for students who are struggling with this idea that it has to sound like so upper level, like master's or thesis level writing.
Yep.
Talk to us about some of the messages that you give to these students who are coming from this perception of what it's supposed to sound like.
I think a lot of students come in thinking either I don't have what it takes and we'll just see how long this lasts, or I might have what it takes, but I'm not really sure. And so what will come with that is I've got to kind of pretend to be something I'm not. So this paragraph has to have huge words and huge ideas, and I have to use research that I can barely understand. And my soapbox that I get on with those students often is, no. College writing is about clarity. It's about keeping it simple And it's about staying in those little boxes of what point are you making right now? And you kind of see that light bulb come on of like, well, that's something I can do. That's simpler than this imagined expectation I have of whatever college writing is, it's got to be outside of my reach.
Right.
And when we explain, actually, no, it's just about like, tell me what you're going to tell me that thing, and then tell me that you just told me.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's annoyingly simple,
Yes.
which is why you're confused, because you're expecting it to be so fancy.
Right.
But it's not fancy. We want to hear their voices, and we want to hear it clearly so we can understand what they're having to say. And it is, I mean,
Well, and I love ACE because it sort of removes that temptation to use the AI, where it is upper level, super lofty kind of verbiage, which is one of the big clues that
it's real
probably
easy to
not
spot.
that student.
It's real easy to spot. Yes. And, you know, we really do want to hear their voices and their ideas. We have incredible students who have incredible backgrounds and stories, and what a loss to get whatever the computer thought of. We
Right.
want to hear from them.
Absolutely.
So part of what we're doing is helping them feel the confidence to put those sentences and paragraphs together in their own voice, because it's a voice we want to hear.
Absolutely. And they have the right to, and hopefully they would want to enter the conversations that are affecting issues around the world, around this community, around the state, et cetera, et cetera. So where does ACE Lab go from where we are now? What are your ideas for moving into what's coming next for CCC?
Well, we are busting at the seams. So some hiring is going to be really helpful. We're always recruiting for student tutors. So for students who are watching this that are thinking, I could probably, you know, I really struggled in Bio 111 for those first couple tests. And then I figured out how to study for these. I figured out what worked for me. I could probably show another student what worked for me and help them figure out what might work for them.
Right.
Definitely keeping a student-centered environment in there is hugely important to us. We're also realizing that there kind of needs to be a foundation of professional tutors that are returning semester to semester to support those student tutors. And it's been I think that mix it's created a nice camaraderie amongst tutors down there. Just it's a good vibe. It's just a good vibe.
Right.
Which is building that community has been really important to us. And some other things we're really hoping to move into are student-centered workshops. So what do I do when I get that paper prompt and I don't know what to do? How on earth do I do MLA and APA, the bane of all of our existences?
Right. And which one?
Yeah, exactly.
Which one am I supposed to use?
Exactly. And how to prepare for a test. Like, what's the plan? Because wondering is stressful. But if you have a plan, pick one or two of those things, try it out, see what happens.
Right.
We're trying to make bite-sized workshops for students to be able to try new things. Time management. Test anxiety is a huge one. I got a big request from the health sciences world where they take tests about every day. How do you handle test anxiety? And we don't think of this as tutoring, but being able to stay calm and access your full brain during a test is a gigantic part of being a student.
Right.
So we're trying to listen to what are the issues students are struggling with and try to offer strategies for those things. So making sure that students understand ACE is way, way more than I have a 42 in my math class, what do I do?
Right.
We will help you in that situation, 100%, come see us. But we're dealing with a whole lot more than that. Just how to use student, how to student.
Right. And taking that mystery out so that there is
Yes.
some practical steps they can take. It's not just a
100%.
great idea, what I could do, but I'm not willing to.
I think another
that
huge-
accountability piece is big.
Yeah, for sure. Another huge thing is that students come in thinking they're the only ones feeling this way. And they're not. It's perfectly normal to walk in. I don't care if you're a 17-year-old high school student in a college class, or I've worked with people in their 80s. When you walk into a college class, you're like, what am I doing here? How's this work? And I must be the only one who's stressed out. So because we see students all the time, we get to say, nope, what you're going through you're exactly on schedule.
Yeah.
Panic is part of the process.
Don't worry.
Yep.
These are normal
Yep.
feelings. Everyone feels
100%
them.
normal.
I think that's such an encouraging position to be in, to be able to encourage the students along and kind of help kill that imposter syndrome feeling of I don't belong here. Because really, if you've been led to this place, then I would say that you belong. You know, we'll figure out a way to make you, get the things done that need to be done. Can you think of anything else that we forgot to cover or we didn't cover during our time? Or
Well, I'll just give a shout out to our staff. I mean, students who sign up to help other students are just people that enjoy learning and people that enjoy absorbing some of their fellow students' stress. And I know I hammer on it constantly. But, we've all been in professional lives that were stressful. It's hard to do your best work when you're under a lot of stress. So it's just an environment that is a cheerleading space for students where if you need to come down there and be mad about everything, we'll be like, yeah, I was mad about everything yesterday. Yeah. What one problem could we solve in this next hour? Could we take anything off your plate? Let's tackle this paper and see if you feel a little better on the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. I think that to-do list starts feeling really long and impossible. And the only way to, what do they say, eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
That's exactly right.
You've got to actually take the bites and
Yeah.
do the chewing. But,
Yep.
once you get to that point, you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for sure. So,
And there's not a tutor down there that doesn't love their job. I mean, it's such a treat to get to do that one-on-one and see something work for a student and see them have that thought, maybe I can do this.
Becky, thank you again for taking the time to be with us and tell us all about the Academic Center for Excellence, ACE, here at Cleveland Community College. To learn more about how to get connected to the ACE lab here at CCC, you can go to clevelandcc.edu/ACE. And that's all we have for today. Thank you for being with us. For Cleveland Connections, I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll. We'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, we have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at c19.tv.
Hello, I'm Jason Hurst, and I have the great honor and privilege of serving as president of Cleveland Community College. And I want to thank you for watching C19 TV, Cleveland County's hometown channel.
In the summertime, when the weather is high, you can stretch right up and touch the sky. When the weather's fine, you got women on your mind.